Have you ever prepped for a session and then just before you were ready to start, you got this? Just won tickets for tonight's concert! Woo! See you next time! Or this.
Why do you even bother?
And then the players who showed up, they are just so deflated because they don't get to play, or they're going to have to play something else. Or perhaps you have unexpected company. Maybe you have family members over and one of them has said, "Hey, I remember this tabletop game that I know you're familiar with. I'm actually ready to try it." I'm going to demonstrate how you can whip up a one-shot in under 30 minutes with absolutely no preparation. What is a one-shot? In the case that you didn't know, a one-shot is typically a single session of a tabletop game. Could be D&D, could be Pathfinder, could be anything else. But it is a single session that is held somewhere in the realm of 4 to 6 hours is the average. I've seen them done in 2, I've seen them done in 12. It's really up to you and the folks that are going to be with you to play it. But what do you need? What is it that you need with you to be able to plan it and to pull it off?
I need Kate, I need Leo.
Well, obviously, you need people. You need someone to run the game, and you need some folks to be able to play the game. You'll also need some supplies, depending on the game that you're playing. Most tabletop games require a particular set of dice. If you don't have that set of dice on hand, you can use the internet to just quickly type up some kind of online roller.
Where are the dice? Daddy says dice are wicked.
You'll need some kind of character sheet or some reference for the character that you're going to be playing, and probably access to the rules of the game. Everything on the left side of the screen, I can't help you with. I'm sorry, I can't give you the people, and I can't give you the supplies. Everything on the right side of the screen, we're going to tackle in this video.
Hooray!
What are the key features of a one-shot? The most important one is going to be the setting. Past that, we have plot, encounter, the NPCs, and loot. Let's dig into these key features a little bit deeper. Setting being the most important, you need to understand what kind of environment, what kind of surroundings will the players be in? What kind of a place is it? What's the location? And you might even need to understand what the time frame is. What era are they in? Are they in a medieval fantasy jungle on a space jammer ship with futuristic components in the astral sea on a pirate ship in the ocean? Mad Max Avernus type of world with crazy vehicles. Setting is the key component when it comes to planning out one-shots. Without the knowledge of the setting, the rest can't really fall into place. You need to understand the surroundings and the environment and the weather before you can answer what kind of a plot, encounter, NPCs, or loot you're going to throw at your players. Your decision on the setting will inform the rest of your decisions after.
Of course it's a big decision. Life is full of big decisions.
Once you've decided on your setting, plot is going to be the next key component. What are your players going to do in this environment? What is the quest? What is the driving narrative that is going to propel them continually forward into the adventure? Once you've decided on the setting, you've decided on the plot that will be within that setting, the next key piece is to figure out what the encounter will be. An encounter refers to a specific situation, some kind of a challenge that your players are going to be faced with. 9 times out of 10, it's going to be combat, but that doesn't mean that it has to be. There are other forms of encounters that you can throw at your players, such as puzzles, traps, skill challenges, chase scenes, and more. Once you've decided on the challenge that your players are going to face, the next step is going to be figuring out what NPCs you might need in your adventure. Typically, NPCs can be considered as the shopkeepers, the tavern keepers. They are any character the DM is in control of and not the players. You can also use NPCs to further enhance your narrative. You can use them as allies, as adversaries. You can use them as quest givers and as data givers.
Data.
We'll cover NPCs further in just a little bit. Once your players have completed their objectives, make sure that you have some loot ready for them. Your characters have been through some sort of ordeal. In response to the actions that they've taken, they should be rewarded with some sort of treasure, something valuable to compensate them for their efforts. One-shots are typically about 3 to 6 hours and include about 4 to 6 players and can usually have about 1 to 2 encounters in that one-shot. This is a little bit of a sliding scale, and you're going to have to use use your best judgment. If you have only 1 to 2 players, then you may want to consider having a third and fourth encounter in your back pocket just in case things kind of run a little quickly. On the reverse side, if you have 8 players, you should definitely scale things down to just 1 encounter to fit within the time frame that you all have agreed to. Let's talk about setting. Let's come up with some ideas. We could do the inside of a mountain with a lava maze. We could do a glacier. I kind of like that. But instead of it being just what I think is a very small island, I want this glacier to be a really big glacier. All right, it sounds like we have our setting. It's going to be a frozen tundra wasteland with one very gigantic glacier. Now that we have our setting, what's next? Remember that plot is something that is going to give the party something to do. It's going to be the quest. It's going to be the narrative arc. It's going to be the thing that's going to drive the adventure. Let's start thinking about some plots for our setting. Our setting was a frozen tundra with a huge glacier. What's going to be the quest that we give our party when they are in the frozen wastelands heading towards a glacier? Let's see. There could be some kind of an avalanche that has happened to a nearby town, and maybe they need to rescue the people in the town. See, what else is involved in a frozen wasteland? The adventure could be that they come across an individual who has been hiking and lost their way. They need help getting back home to the nearby town. What if there was some kind of a baby penguin emergency? Baby penguins. I don't know why that's popping into my head, but sure, let's go with it. Baby penguins. They have come across a baby penguin and they need to rescue it. They're on a glacier. Maybe, oh, here we go. They're in a frozen tundra. They hear a "ma."
Sounds like a fish.
Or whatever baby penguins make. I don't know what sound they make. They go, "Oh, heart, I hear a baby animal and we must rescue it." All right, fear not. This sounds very weak. As we continue to walk through the rest, it will all tighten up. So now that we have our setting, frozen tundra with glacier, and we have our quest, which is save baby penguin, what's next? We need an encounter. That's right. This is typically where you should have some idea of what level your players will be at. Either you need to determine that as you're planning and communicate to your players, "Hey, I'm creating an adventure that I think you all should be level 6 for." Or your players are already level 6. Let's say your players have arrived and you had the 1 or 2 that canceled, okay? The players that have arrived, they are level 6. Once you know what level you need to plan this at, we can move on with planning an encounter. If you have, let's say, level 1 players, you're not going to throw a dragon at them. I mean, you could. And if you do, you want to check out my Flex Encounters video. But let's just say that you have a bunch of level 1 players. If you threw a dragon at them, they'd probably die. Or let's say you have all level 20 players. If you throw sheep at them, they're probably going to get bored. And while it's not mandatory, you may want to consider your party's group composition. If you have a party that has absolutely no way of healing, no cleric, no way to revivify, you may not want to throw a very hard and heavy lich at them. Or maybe you might. And again, go check out my Flex Encounters video. If your party has no rogue, you may want to reconsider whether or not you're going to run that heist. I'm not saying that it's impossible, it's just something to think about. Let's assume for this presentation, our players are level 10, which is pretty much midline, so everything's on the table. Let's see if we can come up with encounter ideas for each of these types, just so that you kind of get an understanding of what you could do for a one-shot. So we have a frozen tundra wasteland with a huge glacier and some kind of a baby penguin that needs to be saved. The most easy way to create an encounter would be to add combat. Maybe there is a huge mammoth dragon. That may not really be a creature, but that's okay. Let's just call it a snowy glacier dragon. Okay, it's a glacial dragon. Here we go. So the encounter could be the party is adventuring in a snowy wasteland. Here's a baby penguin. Ma!
What's that noise?
They go to save it, and an icy glacial dragon appears, and that's the encounter. It's combat. The encounter could be some kind of an NPC interaction. Now, that's not the same as saying, I'm going to talk with the shopkeep. I'm going to talk with the tavern keeper. What if, when the party hears the baby penguin, they go to investigate, and there is some NPC who is trying to capture this penguin. And instead of trying to push for combat, maybe there's a way that the party could negotiate negotiate with this NPC. Maybe they could charm the NPC. Maybe the quest is that they need to get this baby penguin back alive, and the NPC, upon being discovered, is now holding the penguin hostage and about to kill it, okay? If they make any wrong moves, this baby penguin gets killed.
They're gonna get an earful.
The party is forced to use other checks besides combat, such as charming the NPC, negotiating, such as convincing the NPC that killing the penguin is not in their best interest. There could be some kind of a trap involved. What if, instead of there being an NPC with the baby penguin has fallen into some sort of hunter's trap? Surrounding that hunter's trap are other deadly traps that the party will have to engage and maybe dismantle these traps before they can get to the baby penguin safely. Ooh, I like this. What if it's a puzzle encounter? So the baby penguin is caught out there calling, "Ma! What is that? What is that?" Maybe this glacier is a puzzle. Remember I mentioned it's going to be it's a different type of glacier. What if this snowy town, snowy city uses the glacier as some kind of training grounds, or it's a magical area where any magic users would maybe go to train their fire magics? Who knows? But it's some sort of puzzle. The penguin has unfortunately found its way into the puzzle glacier. So it is up to the party to go through the puzzle and figure out how to magically disrupt whatever this glacier is doing. Maybe there are magical traps. Now you're just combining traps and puzzles. Maybe the encounter is a skill challenge. As soon as your players step onto the glacier, it begins to tip. You have to run the party through a series of checks, dexterity checks to make sure that they don't fall off. Maybe there needs to be intelligence or wisdom check for them to understand that they need to balance their weight onto the glacier. Then there's maybe some kind of survival checks to understand how to move on the glacier so that you can keep it balanced while also saving the penguin. Then there might be another additional set of checks to get off the glacier without tipping the glacier over. And lastly, imagine creating a chase encounter with glaciers. I'm envisioning that as you hear the baby penguin, you see there is a glacier that seems to be floating off into the ocean. And maybe whoever has the highest perception, they notice that there seem to be some individuals that are steering the glacier somehow. Maybe they're using some kind of oars and paddling the glacier. And now it's up to the party to hop onto the next glacier and chase after them. So you've got two glaciers just chasing off after each other into the ocean. I'm just coming up with this right now, folks. It may not be very polished, but guess what? We're still doing it in under 30 minutes. So now we have our setting, we have our plot, and we have at least one encounter. What's next? We need to figure out some NPCs. What kind of NPCs do we need for this adventure? Think through. Do you imagine that your players just wake up on an icy wasteland and hear a penguin and decide to go? Or perhaps they hear some otherworldly voice.
God?
And it screams down to them, "There's a baby penguin in need, go help it." You could do that, but I would suggest that you have an NPC do that. There's a difference, as I mentioned, between the NPCs that run shops and taverns versus the NPCs that can be quest givers or data givers. They can also be allies and adversaries. The NPCs that you will have for your shops and taverns, those can be anybody. They can be blonde, they can be bald, they can be kids, they can be old people, they can be skinny and short and tall and have an accent. None of that is really important to the plot. You can generate all those details on the fly with online generators and lists. That's not what I'm here to help you with. What I'm here to help you with are the NPCs that you need to get the adventure moving. In this case, because we're starting with the party waking up in an icy wasteland, how are we going to get them to where we need them to go? Well, let's use an NPC. Maybe instead of the party waking up on the icy wasteland, the party starts in a town that is nearby. The party starts in a town that resides in a snowy wasteland. Now, in the town, there are tons of people, and of course, they're going to come across at least one of them. And it could be the shopkeeper, it could be the tavern keeper, it could be anyone that they encounter, but that person says, "Hey, I have a son who is interested in our local wildlife and has been feeding these baby penguins for the last couple weeks. My son hasn't come back since yesterday. I'm worried, but I can't leave my shop, my tavern, my my flower cart. I can't leave any of that. You folks look capable. Perhaps you could go in my place and look for my son. Now that just came up on the fly, but that will get them to go where you want them to go, which is the glacier and the baby penguin. So that's an NPC that's a quest giver. Perhaps the quest giver says, hey, I've heard that the baby penguins in this area produce some kind of, I don't know, some kind of byproduct or waste that is valuable to the apothecaries in this area. And such apothecary has been looking for and will pay a hefty price for that byproduct. At least that gives the party the quest. Now, if the party needs more information, like where is this glacier, then you could have the same NPC or a different NPC give them the data, which is the glacier is off to the east. You travel 5 hours and you go up a hill and down and to the left, and there's a glacier. That's what a data giver is.
Thanks, Data.
You could also make an NPC that's an ally. Hey, my son is over there. He hasn't returned. Let me travel with you so I can show you the way to the glacier. And there could be an adversary who maybe is an NPC that overheard the party getting this information, and you will give the party some kind of perception check to notice that someone is listening in and then quietly disappears. And maybe as they're traveling to the glacier, they will see this person trying to beat them to it, whatever it is that the party's going to do. That would be an adversary. Try to come up with at least 2 or 3 NPCs for your needs. It could be handy to at least have a general physical description and maybe 1 or 2 mood vibes for that person. Are they a happy person, a sad person? If you want to do accents, you can notate some kind of an accent for them. And that at least gives you a base idea of what to do when they ask, what does this character look like? What are their mannerisms? What are they saying? When you're using NPCs as quest givers, you may want to have some kind of arbitrary number of reward that they will offer. Most times, players that come across quest givers, they could want to go on the quest without knowing what their reward will be, but sometimes the incentive to go is that they know they will be getting some kind of reward. So make sure you have that on hand. Okay, let's recap what we've decided so far. We've thrown out a lot of options. We have a frozen tundra wasteland with a town and a glacier. We have a baby penguin that needs saving and potentially maybe somebody's son. And we have a few NPCs who are going to give us the information and the quest so that we can go and save this baby penguin and this son from some kind of danger that is going to be on the ice. What's the danger? Some kind of an icy dragon. Let's talk about loot. Loot generally involves some kind of gold, coin, or gems, some kind of monetary value. And you can have that number picked out in advance for your quest giver NPCs. However, we should also think about what other type of rewards your party is going to get for the actions that they take and the quest that they complete. These things can be magical items, additional equipment, some kind of a boon or favor, and potentially some additional skills or an extra feat. And it could be something else entirely. For this one shot, let's think about some items that we could throw in. I prefer to throw in things that will make sense for the characters, that maybe align with their backstory, or perhaps items that are relevant to the adventure we are running. Let's assume that our party is a bard, a druid, a wizard, and a rogue. It sounds like a very magic heavy, but whatever. I'm thinking about this on the fly. A magic heavy group, so probably not throwing a lot of heavy battle axes, maces, and things like that in the mix. I'd probably throw in some random magical items that maybe make sense for the area. Let's see, we're in an icy wasteland, so maybe some magic items that do a lot of fire damage, because we're in an Arctic area where maybe it's daytime 24/7 or it could be nighttime 24/7 for a while. Maybe there's some magical items that produce light or can create darkness. As far as equipment goes, there could be things that would be helpful in this area, like, I don't know, fishing rods, tents, sleeping bags, warm clothing. For boons, consider that the tavern owner, should the tavern owner be the one who is giving the quest, they are going to offer the party a free night's stay and a meal or more. Maybe the town offers them their own house or a boat or a ship to be able to leave the area when they're done. Feats and skills I usually offer more to longer form campaigns so that they have the ability to be able to use them when they get them. That being said, I'm going to create a video where you can turn these one-shots into longer form campaigns, so keep that in your back pocket. There could be other things that you think of that I haven't that could be given as rewards. Let's recap the adventure we just came up with. Our party party is going to wake up in some small town that is located in the northern tundra where it's very icy, very cold, and there happens to be a huge glacier nearby. They're going to probably wander around town and encounter some random NPCs, one of which will probably tell them that their son has not shown up for the last 24 hours. They are unable to leave their tavern to go in search of their son. Party, would you help me and go search for my son for me, please? The glacier is over east. It's about a 3-hour walk over the hill and down and to the right. The party goes to investigate. They may have been given some sort of reward or been told about some reward, or maybe they decide to go out of the goodness of their own hearts. They travel to the glacier and hear, meh.
So that's what that noise means.
And there's your baby penguin. Next to the baby penguin is some figure that looks like some humanoid male. Could be the boy that they're searching for. They push forward to see this individual and realize that coming up from the water onto the glacier, tipping the glacier barely over, and maybe the baby penguin and kid are gonna fall off any minute, comes an icy dragon initiative. You have your combat encounter. Once the party has saved the day, they bring the boy and maybe the baby penguin home and receive their rewards. I came up with that in under 30 minutes, and so can you. Now you are ready for adventure at a moment's notice. If you want to learn how to flex your encounters so that you can avoid a TPK or give your players a little bit more of a challenge, watch this video here. Thanks for watching.